Let's go drift it.
Here I'm rebuilding my engine mounts. These were the temporary solution I made last year. It's just a tube with some welded nut and stud, and it was extending the stock, or not stock, but engine mounts I bought from Granny's, and kind of sat like that. What I'm going to do is make a new mount that is just one piece and does not incorporate this, because I also had to drill holes here to set the engine back, and I want to be able to use these original holes again. They're a lot easier to get to and whatnot. So I'm going to build a engine mount that is very similar, but is going to be one piece, all sheet metal like this. This is 3/16 sheet metal. I'm going to draw everything up, get it cut out, and then weld a few up. And what I'm doing here is I am trying to increase since my oil pan is so deep, I need to raise it up above the subframe so I'm not running on my oil pan if I'm bottom out the suspension. I finally went ahead and cleaned off my subframe. I'm going to put it back up in the car because I want to try to build a skid plate to protect the oil pan. Basically what I'm going to do is have some pieces that I'm thinking about either building a frame off of this with some square tubing, 1x1, and then plating an aluminum plate back here, or I could do some sort of aluminum plate and then a support in the back that would bolt to the frame rails. The idea here is, if this is the subframe, I'm going to have some square tubing. It's going to come back like so, 45-degree miter, and then inside we'll sit a plate, aluminum, and then we'll have little tabs that'll hold it. This would be like a 1x1, and then this overall is 12 inches, and this is about 19, something like that. And this could be 1/4 inch aluminum, and this would be steel. So now I've got a little drawing, these little tabs, like if I was gonna make an exploded view, would be something nice like that. This would be a 1/4 inch hole, and these could be 1/8 inch steel. It's probably something like 1 inches to the center, and this may be 2 inches or 1.5 inches. So that's a basic design for the skid plate, and what I will do is cut some metal and start fitting it up. I guess the most important thing too is I got to figure out how long this aluminum is. So it's 12 inches minus 1 because you have two tubes on the side. So this is going to be 10 inches probably by 18 inches would be good, and then I will cut the holes later on. But now I kind of know what I need to order. This is the oil cooler I have. It's a very basic. It's got 1/2 inch MPT ports and -10 AN fittings I got for it versus -8, so I get more flow. Don't want to have too much pressure drop, and I will be mounting this somewhere on the car. I'm mocking it up right now. Then I also got the engine bearings, and I'm going to take a look at these and put them. So putting these lower bearings on, which are the ones without the grooves, is pretty easy. All I've done is just cleaned the bearing cap very well. I've got my bearing. I'm not going to put any lubricants on the back because you want a good metal-to-metal contact, so the bearing has less tendency to spin. And then I just snap it into place. So I will do this on all the caps. Right now I just have, I believe, 2 and 3 out right now. As I go, we'll just put these new bearings in. You can see these are coated compared to, these are the uncoated original bearings that were in it. Next thing I did was just to make sure that both these sides are even. So you kind of can push and make sure they're even so that you get good crush when you install the cap. This is an upper bearing, and you can tell because of the groove in it. And these are going to be a little trickier to install because obviously you have to go in the part of the engine block that is inside the car. So I'm going to use the rolling bearing technique that T-Boss Garage did such a good tutorial on, and put these bearings in. I'm going to do one main at a time. Now I've got 2 upper bearings in there. You can kind of tell there's a bunch of assembly lube. What I'm going to do now is plastic gauge these and see what the clearances are. Plastic gauge is a really good tool for double checking, and definitely way cheaper than some fancy bore gauge or snap gauges and a outside micrometer. So that's what I use to check, and this is probably not necessary, but this is a good sanity check for me to make sure that the clearances are good. The uppers did roll in pretty easily. This one was a little tighter, which is understandable. It is a little looser usually as you go out towards the oil pump. It's going to be tighter at the front of the engine because you want to maintain your oil pressure. As the oil travels farther, it's going to need a tighter clearance to maintain the same pressure as the main bearings that are closest to the oil pump. Now I have the main caps on, so you can see there's 1 and 2, or 2 and really it's 2 and 3. These have a piece of plastic gauge on a dry lower bearing, and you can see I've got my ARP fasteners. I'm torquing these to 70 foot-pounds in 3 equal torques, so 25, 50, and then 70 is probably going to be good. And then I will check the clearance and take them off. And these were installed dry for the plastic gauge, and then I'll put assembly lube before I do the final install on them. Now I've pulled off the main cap. This is a number 3, and you can see here is the plastic gauge. It got compressed, and now I will read the measurement. Plastic gauge gives you a nice little measurement here. You can see there's a 0.001, 0.0015, 0.002, and 0.003. And what I'm going to do, those are different widths. Basically, you hold that up and you see how wide your line is, and that'll tell you your approximate engine clearance. I stress that this is very approximate, and it does not replace using proper bore gauges. But for something like this, it works great just to recheck. It's kind of hard to tell, but this white one is 0.0015, and I'm definitely less than, or more clearance than that, closer to 0.002, but definitely not near the 0.003. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot I could do at this point. One thing would be maybe sanding the back of the bearing so it sits down in the cap a little bit more, but I don't feel 100% comfortable doing that. So I think I'm going to run it like this, see how the oil pressure and everything is, and go from there. So I couldn't get this thrust bearing out, the last main bearing, so I took this little cotter pin, bent it like so, put it inside the oil passage hole in the crank and just spun the crank around that pushed the bearing right out. A little trick I found online, and it worked actually really well. Now I've got the upper bearing for the thrust bearing out, and I will be putting the new one in. Now that I got the engine bearings all back in and the oil pan on, oil pump on, I'm going to go ahead and get the transmission in. And to do that, I've got to put the flywheel and the clutch back on, torque those bolts up, and then put the transmission in. I'm doing this so I can better position the motor for when I build my engine mounts, hopefully later this week, if not next week. Here's the flywheel. This is just a lightweight flywheel specifically for the LT1 because it's externally balanced. See, I've got a brass pilot bushing in there. What I've done so far is just snug the bolts up, and then I'm going to torque them to 74 foot-pounds in 3 equal increments and use like a star pattern. And then the outside bolts for the pressure plate are 52 foot-pounds. I'll do the same thing, and I'm going to use a clutch alignment tool and make sure everything's aligned. You can see that flywheel is not in the greatest of shape, but it'll do for now, I think. Eventually, I'd like to get a lighter pressure plate, but that hasn't happened yet. A lot of people have asked me how I'm using a T5 in my car behind the LT1, and here's the answer. This is an adapter plate that I'm designed and made. This adapts a third generation Camaro, any third generation, I believe just V8 Camaro bell housing, and it's got a 17-degree tilt standard GM pattern, and the adapter plate is going to adapt from the Chevy pattern. Yes, Leah.
Can my voice be in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this adapter plate is going to adapt the Chevy pattern to the Ford pattern, which is what all the 4th generation V6 Camaros used. And it also tilts the transmission so that when it's in the car, it's straight up and down, because the 3rd gen had the transmission tilted towards the driver. So this kind of accomplishes 2 things in one. It's 1/2-inch aluminum. I should probably make more of these if people are interested. And then it's just a tapped hole M12, and this makes the conversion really easy. I'm going to put the bell housing in first, and then I'll put the transmission in. That's what I found to be easiest. You can see the bell housing is all bolted up. I had to shorten the bolts a bit, just did some grinding and sanding on them. It worked out really well. Those are grade 8 3/8 bolts, just tightened up. And now I'm ready to put the transmission on. This week I'm going to finish putting the transmission on, get the transmission mount on as well, and the engine kind of in position, supported with the transmission mount, in preparation to make the new engine mounts. And those new engine mounts should be done hopefully by the end of this week or next week. And then I can start assembling the suspension and everything again, because that's all prepped at this point. Thank you guys for checking out the video and for all the support. I just reached 600 subscribers, so thank you guys. And please continue to share this page and these videos with anyone that you think might be interested in watching them. And I hope that you guys are continuing to stay safe and making good progress on your projects. And hopefully very soon, at least here in North Carolina, we'll be pretty much back to normal and doing a lot of car events. So you guys have a good one.